peace of mind when this old world seems to get me down.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the third and final segment of the Cajun Conservative Show. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor of having on the show today Dr. John Fleming. He is former congressman. He is former deputy chief of staff to Donald Trump, and he is currently running for state treasury here in the state of Louisiana. Dr. John, welcome to the Cajun Conservative Show. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be on with you today.
So this is take two. We're going to be honest with the audience. This is take two. Had some technical difficulties, but Dr. John, again, tell everyone why you're running for state treasury, and why are you looking at that position for the state of Louisiana?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just tell you a little bit about my background that I think will be helpful for your audience. I grew up in a working class home. I know what it is to deal with a tight budget. My dad died as I left for college, meaning that I had to find other resources and work my way through. After college, I went to medical school, then joined the military. I was a Navy doctor for 6 years, and then settled down in a small town in Louisiana called Minden in Webster Parish, and still have an active practice today. But along the way, I became interested in opening businesses and getting into real estate. So I've been a business owner. I own 35 Subway restaurants, among other things. And I know what it is to make a payroll. I know what it is to sign the front part of the check, not just the back part of the check. And along about 2008, I became concerned about my country. And there was an opportunity to run for Congress, and I ran and served for 8 years. And not only was I concerned about Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and what they were trying to do, bringing on the early stages of wokeness, but also even our Republican leadership I was not happy with. So a group of us came together, 9 of us, the founding members of the House Freedom Caucus, and other notable names are Mark Meadows, Ron DeSantis, and Jim Jordan. And we really, I think, and even today, the House Freedom Caucus is forging positive and conservative changes in Washington. So after my 8 years in Congress, President Trump appointed me to a leadership position in Health and Human Services as a physician, and then later moved me to the head of the Economic Development Administration, which required Senate confirmation. And then the last year of his administration, he moved me to the West Wing of the White House, where I served as Deputy Chief of Staff, working alongside Mark Meadows. And I was there during the peak of the pandemic. And I had many different roles there, trying to keep this country rolling while we were still in a century pandemic. So now that all of that is over with, and I'm very anxious to work to turn Louisiana around. As you know, Louisiana seems to be 50th in everything good and number 1 in everything bad. Our economy's been languishing for a century, since Huey Long. And it's time that we reform our government, do away with the personal income tax, reduce our tax overall and our regulations, and really begin to compete with southern states around us that are growing and ascending, while Louisiana is still losing population and losing valuable businesses. So I want to be part of a conservative team in 2024, including the governor and the legislature, supermajority of conservatives, that we're going to work together to finally break through and get this state up and running. So that's the overall view, but there's some detailed issues and challenges that we can get to as well that I look forward to.
Talking about the challenges, because we have John Stroder that's in there right now. Previously, before him was John Kennedy, and now I got a question to ask you, and this is inside stuff. I don't know if you're privileged to tell us that, but to be Secretary of the State Treasury, do you have to have the first name John? Because after you, if I run, I'm out. I'm Isaac.
It almost seems that way, doesn't it? So I would be the third John in a row. So let's kind of keep it rolling.
Hey, let's keep it rolling.
Absolutely.
No, but back to the question though, because you had 2 previously good state treasurers. They did some well stuff. They took care of that position very well. How is that going to go forward? Are you going to keep doing what they were doing, or what you have anything planned to go forward of your own?
Well, as you recall, John Kennedy enhanced the unclaimed property portion of the Treasurer's office, which is to give money back to citizens that is deserved to them, whether it's inheritance or maybe a tax refund or something that for whatever reason never made it to the person. And governors and legislatures have tried to take that money at times, and they've done a good job, the previous treasurers, to prevent that from happening. Number two is under John Schroeder's tenure, there's been the issue with ESG investments. He divested $800 million of ESG, and basically BlackRock, which is heavily invested in ESG. And that's a positive development because study after study shows that ESG investments give very poor return, and the taxpayers deserve better than that.
Yeah, isn't it the Biden administration that they went ahead and put into a plant somewhere in the United States for ESG and climate control and stuff, and it bankrupt? It was for electric vehicles.
Right. Well, there's several examples. One notable example under President Obama was Solyndra, which was supposed to take the marketplace for manufacturing, if you will, solar panels from China. And the government lent over $500 million, and that place closed up in a matter of months. And all that money went into the pockets of bigwig Democrats and politicians. It never went to the benefit of the citizens. So every time you go down that road of government subsidizing these woke ideas, it's just a waste of money, and it does nothing for our environment. The United States has done a better job in reducing CO2 emissions than any Western nation, and we've done it through natural gas because natural gas is a very, very clean carbon-based energy. And for me, I'm an all-above guy. If there is, if it's more cost-effective and lowers power rates to use one type of system over another, and the government's not subsidizing it, I'm all for it. But as it turns out, there's just nothing as clean or as efficient as natural gas. And we are floating on natural gas in this country, and especially in Louisiana. So why in the world would President Biden be shutting all that down and then buying oil and gas from Saudi Arabia at a much higher price? It makes no sense at all.
It's to pass their agenda, unfortunately. You get what I'm saying? They don't. Dr. John, I'm gonna be honest with you on that note. I don't honestly think President Biden really cares about the American citizens. I think he cares more about protecting his family and filling up his back pocket with cash.
I would agree with you. And I'm not really so sure that President Biden is a decision maker anyway.
True.
He's surrounded by senior decision makers from the Obama administration. Some even speculate that former President Obama himself may be passing along decisions. And again, I have no inside knowledge of this, and I can't confirm it. But, you hear comments from President Biden like, well, I said something wrong and I'm going to get in trouble. Well, you're the president of the United States. You're the leader of the free world. Who do you get in trouble with when you make a statement? Because that should all be coming from your mind. And it would seem that he really answers to other people. So that's a very worrisome situation, particularly as we approach re-election, and a guy who obviously has some disabilities when it comes to his brain function. We all recognize that fact. So anyway, it would seem that you're right. Remember that in my view, and I think in the view of our founding fathers, government has two viable, important roles. One is to protect its citizens, and President Biden has not been doing that either at the city level or on our southern border. And then number two is to regulate commerce so that one business doesn't have an unfair advantage over others. And of course, he's doing everything he can to favor some states and some businesses over others. So he is not really complying with our founders' vision as the role of government.
We were talking about this earlier. The founding fathers are probably turning over in their graves. It's sad because they never envisioned a government this big. They wanted a government that was small. A lot of people would ask, why did George Washington only take 2 terms as the president? There was no term limit then for the president. Well, he didn't want to stay in that role for God knows how many years. He didn't want it to be like a kingship. And it's way different now, where we had our first president that says, look, I'm going to do 8 years. And then then we have this week Nancy Pelosi announcing at 83 that she's going to run for another congressional race. I call the the Biden administration the backwards administration, because they do everything backwards, and the Democrat Party does the same thing.
Yeah, look, the Democrat Party has now become basically the Socialist Party of the U.S. They've left everybody behind. And for them, it's really all about gaining power and control over the electorate. And this, of course, is the way socialist countries do this. And unfortunately, there's not a successful socialist country ever. They've all gone down the tubes in North Korea, Venezuela, the old Soviet Union. They're all going down, they're circling the toilet. And why in the world would we go that direction when we've defeated communism and socialism? So I hope the American people will wake up to what's going on around them.
Yes, sir. So let's get back to your race. You're not the only candidate in the race. I wish you was running unopposed, to be honest. But unfortunately, we have another Republican in there that is part of the good old boy system, we like to call it here in Louisiana, where we think Louisiana's fine as long as we're filling up our pockets and influencing people that have a lot of money, or the advocate, something of that nature. Then you have a left-wing Democrat that has come out and says, listen, I want to stop the oil fill. I want to start spending more on ESG. I want to pass this social agenda and that social agenda. Right when I heard his ad for the first time, I was like, he lost, because he came against energy. But Dr. John, how's that race going? Are you up ahead, or are you tied, or what's going on with that?
We ran a poll 2 weeks ago, and remember, there's one Democrat and 2 Republicans. I'm one Republican, and there's the other. And the Democrat got 30% of the votes, which is not unexpected. Those who are diehard Democrats are going to vote for whoever's got a D next to their name, regardless of who they are. I got 21%, and then my Republican opponent got 7%. So my numbers were 3 times my Republican opponent. And it seems the reason is that people feel like that my Republican opponent is a rhino. He recently voted to bust the caps on the budget in the legislature that was signed into law by John Bel Edwards. And they wasted $2 billion on pet projects that could have been deployed to pay down the debt and increase the income stream to the state. This is going to put the next governor in a hole, and it's going to force him to consider raising taxes once again, which is exactly opposite of what we need to do to turn this state around. So it looks like that, based on the poll, that I will survive the primary and be in a runoff election with the Democrat. And as you point out, the Democrat is very woke. I've met him, I've talked to him, I've even been in forums with him. He believes in the so-called demand type of economy, which is put as much money in the pockets of people and let them go out there and spend it, and that'll create jobs. Well, that's what Biden has been doing. That's Biden economics. And now we have inflation out of control and interest rates up to 7 and 8%. So he wants to double down on that and do even more of it. That's the last thing we need to do. President Trump signed into law in 2017 the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which spurred our economy like we haven't seen really since Ronald Reagan. And that was supply side economics, which is very successful. And you know who benefited the most from that? It was the working class, the lower income people, because their pay went up faster than any other group. And quite frankly, again, the woke approach to this, the Biden economics, benefits most the wealthy, because inflation enhances the value of real estate and assets, and it's the wealthy who have those. So if you really care about the American people, the middle class, the working class, the hardworking stiff that's going paycheck to paycheck, you really need to cut taxes and regulations and make it where he can get a better, or she can get a better job or a higher paying job. And that's what moves America forward.
Yeah, 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, unfortunately.
Right.
And it is sad. So Dr. John, we have a few more minutes. Could we hear about your candidacy and how you run for state? Could we go into a little bit of your time as Deputy Chief of Staff? You were under Mark Meadows. You went through the COVID years with Donald Trump. How was that? How was that being in the White House at that time? And how was it working with Mark Meadows and our former president Donald Trump?
Oh, it was a great experience. Highest levels of competency. And remember, we haven't had a pandemic in 100 years. So the experts all told us that we needed to shut down the economy for at least 6 weeks and then gradually open it up. And the reason is because we were seeing very high death rates from that first mutation, that first version of COVID. So the problem is when you shut a country down, these businesses may not open back up again unless you help them. So we worked very hard to make sure there were programs for businesses to stay open and keep their employees, even if they weren't working. And it was very successful. And I also was a liaison for the 2020 census, which is a requirement by the Constitution every 10 years. And they were the enumerators were supposed to be out in the field by April 1st, and that was the peak of the pandemic. So what we did is we doubled down on the number of those, and we put in place certain protections to protect their health and the health of people that they were visiting on. I was involved in sub-cabinet decision-making, choosing and approving flag level officers, that's generals and admirals. So it was a very fulfilling work. I was only 10 steps away from the Oval Office, and I valued very much my working relationship and personal relationship with President Trump, as well as many others who were in the White House. So it was a fantastic opportunity for me, and I learned so much about it. So I want to bring my private sector and my public sector experience, both in the Trump administration and in Congress, as well as my business years, to Baton Rouge and really help implement the kind of changes working with our governor that will turn our state around once.
On the governor's race, do you see one clear front runner, or do you what's your prediction going forward? Because we're only a little over a month away until Election Day.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not endorsing any of the candidates, but I'm friends with all of them, and we have excellent candidates. Obviously, the leading candidate is Jeff Landry. He has by far the most money and the highest poll ratings. But even if for some reason he doesn't make it, we have other candidates who are very strong as well. So I'm confident that we're going to have a very strong conservative Republican governor, as opposed to what happened in the last 8 years, where we ended up with John Bel Edwards, who has been a disaster for our state. And in the legislature, it seems very clear that we're going to have a supermajority of Republicans in both the House and the Senate. So it's really looking good for us. If we get these folks in, and if I get in, I think Louisiana has the best future that we've seen in decades.
On the election day, you have an election party or what? What was going on with that?
You know what? I've been so busy with campaigning, I haven't even thought about that. I try not to get, too far over the tips of my skis. And so I'm more concerned with winning, although I'm well ahead and would likely win. As I mentioned, the poll shows me at 21%, at my Republican opponent at only 7%. That's 3 times his number. All I have to do is get past him to be in the runoff with the very woke liberal Democrat. And we're a 60-40 state, 60% Republican, conservative. So I feel confident that we'll win at that level. So it's all looking very good. It's a pathway to success. And but again, whenever I campaign, and I've done a number of campaigns, I always run like I'm behind, like I'm the last one in the race.
That's how you got to do it, dude. You don't count your chickens before they hatch. How they say that in Cajun country.
Exactly.
So, Dr. John, if anybody wants to get in touch with your campaign or want to donate or just see more about you, where can they find all the information?
Yes, you can go to FlemingForTreasurer.com, and that's Fleming with one M, Fleming for FOR Treasurer.com. And you can learn more about me and my campaign. You can donate, you can reach out, volunteer, all of that from that website. You can also go to John Fleming for LA under Facebook and follow Facebook. I've been endorsed by the Republican Party of Louisiana. I've been endorsed by 10 so far and growing Republican parish executive committees. And I have all of the key ones now, East Baton Rouge, Caddo, Bossier, Lafayette, Calcasieu, St. Tammany. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I'm also endorsed by 3 congressmen, Mike Johnson, Clay Higgins, and of course, my good friend Jim Jordan from Ohio. So we're doing very, very well. But again, we're not going to let up until we get to the finish line.
That's awesome. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't do too many endorsements on this show, but I'm going to tell people, go vote for John Fleming if you live in the state of Louisiana. You and Blake Miguez, man. We need people like y'all. And we're going to be here for 3 hours on election night doing election coverage. And I'm hoping I call your name as we project that you win the election. You just don't go into a runoff. Because on that, I could talk all day about the way we elect people here in Louisiana. We need good primaries. We don't need jumbo primaries and stuff like that. But I don't know if you have a thought on that. But I know you.
Yeah, I do have a thought. I definitely think we should go to closed primaries. We're going to get more conservative Republicans elected if we go to closed primaries. And we need to settle the question is, before we even go up against a Democrat, who is the strongest, the true conservative, who has the most conservative record and competency? We need to settle that among the Republicans first before we go up against Democrats. But in open primaries, Democrats can play and they can work against the more conservative Republican. And we need to put a stop to that. So I really think we should look forward to, that's just one of the new achievements we should do in 2024.
That's what I was going to ask you. In 2024, do you see the supermajority House and Senate putting a bill forward saying, look, we need to get this done? Because everyone I've talked to, I've asked Blake, I've asked Alan Seaball, I've asked, I'm going to ask Alan in the future when he comes on, but every state rep candidate or state senate that I've talked to, they all have had the same idea. We need to get a closed primary in here. Do you see that going forward?
I really do. I really think it's past time for that. And, remember, in an open primary, you have Democrats voting for or against a Republican. And so oftentimes Democrats are going to vote for the less conservative Republican. So why, we as a party that's a conservative party, why should we allow Democrats to pull that power away from us as Republicans? It really makes no sense whatsoever. So I do anticipate there will be a strong movement in that direction.
Well, let's hope, Dr. John. Let's hope. So, again, if anybody wants to get in touch with Dr. John or this campaign, just go look up his websites he brought out on his Facebook page. Dr. John, hopefully we'll be talking to you after the October election as being a Victoria, as being the state treasury. We're going to have to do this again soon. You're always welcome on the program. Great.
Thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. And, yeah, let's work together to make Louisiana a much better state.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dr. John, thank you, sir, for coming on. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
That was Dr. John Fleming. He is running for state treasury here in the state of Louisiana. He's also former congressman and also former deputy chief of staff to Donald Trump. If you live in Louisiana, this is a statewide election. Go ahead and vote John Fleming. If you live in District 22, vote for Blake Miguez. And let's get some conservatives out here. This not also Alan Seaball. We have some good candidates, guys. If you live in Louisiana, please vote conservative, and let's change the state around. As Dr. Fleming said earlier in the interview, we can't be 50 on good and everything and up on number one of bad. We have to get that turnaround. So go ahead and do that for us here at the Cajun Conservative Show. Do us a favor and vote Republican, just not Republican, conservative Republican. With that being said, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for watching this episode and listening to this episode of the Cajun Conservative Show. Again, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button on the platform you're listening on. Remember, Jesus Christ is King. He's coming back. He's coming back soon, so don't be faint of heart, because Jesus has overcome the world. If you want to know Jesus, your Lord and Savior, reach out to me at the CajunConservative5@gmail.com. I'll tell you how to make Jesus your Savior and heaven your home. Until next time, be blessed, be encouraged. You have a good one.